I don't know why there's so many art scams in the book space. Well, actually, I know why. If you guys like books and you guys like art, there's a big intersection between books and art because obviously cover art, this, that, and the third. And so many AI scammers are sticking their greasy little paws in there. And this is a story that is covering allegedly just that. Let's dive in. So this all starts with this author, N.H. Sinclair author. NH writes, "You are not ready for this. I present to you Zerato's and Lyra's character art by Isabella on Instagram. Yay! There's some spoilers. We can take some peeps. Ooh, cute. Well, I mean, look, I'm down for some fun books, you know what I'm saying? It's all cute, fine and dandy. We get them in a different scene. I am intrigued. But something is a little bit suspect. A little bit. And let's delve into this. So it looks like there was a tweet that was deleted in between these two posts, but NH comes around on threads and writes, "False alarm! The artist who did the work sent me the full video of her process. I was able to watch it all to prove it was her work. Gen AI sucks. I don't want to question artists. I feel like a butthead." I'm guessing it probably was like a post relating to like, oh, I think the art is suspicious or something. And somebody in the comments says, not to be that guy, but it's harder for non-artists to spot AI. If you have any doubts, they probably came up for a reason, and AI can make time lapses now. And the author says, wait, for real? I am so confused. How does one tell? And the commenter says it's a sixth sense kind of thing. So the author then drops the speed paint. Oh boy. Okay, so this is the speed paint in question. I'm already a little bit intrigued by the speed paint because I'm a little bit confused as to why this is the coloring method. And again, before we get into this, I'm gonna add a massive disclaimer, okay? Every artist has their own art process. If you like to draw in a specific way that is completely unique to you, that is completely fine. Whatever floats your boat, you know, whatever you wanna do is totally chill. We're just speaking in this case specifically because there's already slight suspicions around this art piece and around this artist, but we're gonna take a closer look and be like, well, is this AI? Is this not AI, etc. If you do draw like this, or this is your process, it does not mean that you used AI. Please forgive me, I'm drawing with my mouse, okay? But what is being done here, and I don't know if like you guys noticed, but essentially the way they were coloring, they were using the selection tool, selecting the dead space in their line art like this, and then they were kind of like coloring with a large soft airbrush like that. Let me actually use green and not some other whack color. And then they were deselecting afterwards. This isn't typically the most common way you would see people color line work. Some people do color their line work like this. The reason why it's typically not the most common is if you zoom all the way in, it creates like a teeny bit of like white in between your line work and where you're actually like filling. It just doesn't create like the cleanest line work possible, not every single time anyways, right? Typically, you would find artists, they would do something closer to like this, where they would have their line art on a transparent layer and color beneath that layer so that they can keep everything behind the line work like this, and then they'll color like this. So this on its own is not suspicious, right? It's not the most common way to color line work, but some people do this. But as you can see, right, this is how they color. And again, the reason why I'm saying it's odd specifically in this case is because they did line work, right? Like, as you can see here, they have fine lines on the pants, and then as they fill over it, they're like coloring over the lines they drew, which is a bit redundant because then what was the point of drawing the lines? And as you can see here, they're kind of like airbrushing parts of the body. This is what's suspicious because you go from like coloring in some flat color, whatever, bam, face is already completely rendered. Poof. We didn't see any of the face rendering at all. Why is that? If you're sending a speed paint to prove that you painted it yourself, wouldn't you send the full speed paint, you know, where we see you render the face? Where's the rest of the face rendering? They just add in some like shading and stuff to the face. Okay, we have a pupil added and stuff like that. Yeah, look, the body is already completely rendered. Like it's almost like 90% done. They just add some shadows and stuff, which also I'm like a bit confused as to why there's a line down the arm. You see that? Between the two stripes on the arm is a line there. I don't know. But they just go and like render the rest of the face. Again, the rendering like 90% done. They add some like extra highlights or whatever. They're gonna skip to the girl in a second. Just wait till they skip to the girl because oh my god. First up, completely rendered already. But look at the eyes. What in the avatar eyes is happening here? Because like you have a triangle for one pupil and a cat pupil, the vertical one. These are not the same eyeball. You're telling me you can render a hot fantasy monster man to this level and you can't draw the same eye? Not to mention what's happening with that earring. And then look at the eyelash, look at the lower lashes. Look at the lower. The rendering quality of what is being drawn does not match the quality that you see in the layers beneath it. The lower lashes don't match the rest of the face. Nothing wrong if for a stylistic choice, that is how you want to draw the lower lashes. This is drawn in a very semi-realism art style. These lashes do not match that art style at all. And then look at the rings drawn around the eyes. Look at that. And then she zooms out. She zooms out. We gotta zoom out in a second. Where did the lower lashes go? They're now gone. I'm genuinely so confused. So another user says, if you mean Zertos and Lyra's character art, then yes, it's traced AI. You can understand by looking at his belt. I went to see Instagram as well. All photos are traced AI. Normal artists can see the AI mistakes. And the author says, ugh, this was the sketch I accepted. We played around with it for a while. The sketch is most definitely, interesting. Well, first off, bro's got pants that melt into legs with no pant cuff. I'm just saying, like, oh, if you're an artist, why? You just would draw pants on him, you know? You just would not do this. Secondly, the belt is odd. I don't know what is happening with the belt, but it's not hoisting up the pants and the belt has like an uneven number of straps. It's fine if it's like a double strap belt or something, but there's like 3 straps on one side and 2 on the other, and 1 strap melts into the belt and there's no buckle, which is odd. And then her glasses aren't like glasses either. I'm just confused. And basically the author, for extra context, adds that it was $250. So the author continues, jokes, I don't think I'll ever get character art done again. My heart is broken. In a world of AI, I just want something real. I'll just stick to writing. This was a horrible experience. So the author then makes like a call out post about this artist, which people in the comments add some extra context about the speed paint. A user says, I'll explain what's wrong with the video. She's not drawing on a transparent layer, but on a PDF or JPEG file, a white layer with the generated line art. She tries to fill it with color, but that ends up covering the line art. Then she takes an airbrush and paints it over. The edges of that brush are soft and diffused, so the lines are still slightly visible. This is AI. Her art is not consistent. I saw her Instagram. And in terms of the inconsistent art, this is what is being referred to. We have art that looks like this, and also this. And here we have a speed paint. This is the before. And then poof, all of a sudden it becomes really AI looking. Again, there's no in between. We don't see how they render to this point. We just see sketch, start blocking in the colors, and then poof, instantly render. And then again with the lower lashes is what's sending me. Here, another example of their work. And for extra context, the author adds, she's disappointed, I'm disappointed. I'm the one who lost money on this. The video in question. Take it for what it is. You be the judge, not me, not anyone else. You can't trust anyone but yourself. So if you feel it's AI, then please comment why to explain it to her, because I don't know what to say. And the artist Isabella, these are some DMs, and Isabella says, I'm really disappointed to see you publicly posting and using my name like this. It's not fair to make such claims without proper proof, especially when I've already shared a video showing that the artwork is hand-drawn. I'm honestly at a loss as to why these allegations are still being made after I provided the video. If people are claiming this is AI, I would like to know which AI tool they believe is capable of generating video like the one I sent you. Such a tool doesn't exist. I think the speed paint that was sent was hand done. It was a handmade process to allegedly fake the final result. Isabella continues, I delivered exactly what I promised. 100% hand-drawn work. It is disappointing that you would choose to believe the opinions of others over the concrete proof I shared. Furthermore, if you take the artwork of the very artist making these claims and run them through those same AI detection tools, you'll find that those tools often flag their work as AI as well. These detectors are notoriously unreliable and frequently misidentify high-quality digital rendering as machine-generated. I stand by my work and my transparency. I expect my professional reputation to be respected, especially when I have been completely open about my process from the start. What in the guilt-tripping language is happening here? And people in the response are not buying what Isabella is saying. A commenter says, yeah, feel free to forward her the fact that no artist will fall for this. She provided you a video of her coloring an AI-generated image. Just because she calls it concrete proof does not mean it's any proof at all. Once again, she just proved that she can put an image in Photoshop and use some blend modes and auto selection to color it with a soft brush. There is no pressure sensitivity. There is no actual shading technique displayed. Only putting down flat colors and then smash cut. Everything is rendered and shaded. That is, if you feel like messaging her at all, which I wouldn't really bother. And another person says, where's the initial sketch? First one, she shared the clear AI sketch. She can make unseen AI photo on the time-lapse, by the way. And look at the girl's eyes. She can write whatever she wants. We all know how they fake time-lapses. Real artists see the truth by looking at those AI photos. Again, I'm sorry this happened to you. I hope you'll be fine soon. And again, look at the eye, which by the way, these eyes are not even the one that was in the fake speed paint that was shown. There's black in the white of her eyes. Just why is that there? Not to mention, there's like lines going down the character's arms. I just don't know what that's for. And then again, we have some more oddities here with the final results. Oddities being the belt. Look at these like dots. The holes for the belts, they're just spaced really inconsistently and not evenly. And the author basically adds that they don't believe in gatekeeping the names of people, that if they think they've had a scam or AI experience and it's further proven to be a scam or AI, they'll let other people know. And then Isabella continues to guilt trip in DMs. I've explained the technical reality of digital art and the coloring process to you, but it seems you're choosing to ignore my professional expertise in favor of people who want to find faults. There is nothing more I can say to prove myself if a video isn't enough for you. If you value the opinion of random commenters over the evidence provided by the artist you hired, then we've reached a dead end. I know my work is 100% hand-drawn and my conscience is clear. The amount of gaslighting this artist is doing is wild. So the author then adds some, I guess, more evidence that was sent, which is the source file. And the author writes, I was told this proved it's not AI, so do we have a consensus? I don't art, so I couldn't begin to tell you what this is. But if it proves it, you all have to go follow her, repost her work, and apologize with me. So here we have a bunch of layers. First off, I want to add, layers don't prove the fact that you didn't use AI. It just proves that you know how to open a bunch of layers on its own, right? Like there's more that needs to be shown first off. What I'm confused about is like if you look at the layers here, right? Layer 16 is a blank white layer. Layer 17, 18, 19, layer 8, and layer 8 copy are all the same image, just duplicated 4 times. You can see it has the tall character and then the redhead scientist or lab assistant or lab tech. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There's 17, 18 visible layers. 1 layer is white and 5 are duplications. So out of the 18, only 12 are actual, I guess, layers with artwork on it. I'm just confused about the layers because like everything is flat and these layers don't, to me, do not prove anything. Because, okay, the way layers work is every time you open a new layer in Photoshop, which is the program that this artist is allegedly using, every time you open a new layer, it gives you a +1 number. So this is layer 8 because I've opened a bunch of layers. You can see layer 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I deleted layer 1 already. Every time you open a new one, it goes +1, right? So why is layer 8 already the full image? You know what I mean? Some people will, merge everything onto one layer and then like do adjustments and stuff like that. That typically ends up being layer 157. That won't be layer 8. So then it looks like layer 19 is her coat, layer 14 is her hair, layer 12 is his pants, layer 11 is his head, and then layer 18 is something in the middle, maybe one arm. Layer 19 is like another arm, and then layer 8 is like a part of like the hair or something like that. This is why I'm just confused about the layers. Because again, what some artists will do is like, they'll draw a part of the body. I don't freaking know. Like they'll do like, oh, we'll make a new layer. So we have layer 9. All right, we draw the head. Then we make a new layer, layer 10, and then, I don't know, we add facial features. And then we'll add another layer, layer 11, and that'll be some of the shading for that. I don't know why I picked this ghastly green color, but you know what I mean, right? They'll add some, like, shading to the head. I don't know, some shading. We're gonna make bro round. And then they'll add another layer, and then they'll make, like, a light source, I don't know. Wow, we have lights. And then they'll make another layer, and then they'll add some extra shading, maybe a rim light or something. I don't know. They'll do something like that, and then once they're done, they'll flatten everything together. Like, maybe that's the case? So that's how they ended up with all these layers 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, but, like, this depends, right? Some artists will work with a very minimal amount of layers, but you typically will end up with hundreds of layers. There's also so many duplicated layers of just them together that I'm like, this is not proving anything to me. And the reason why I'm saying it's Photoshop is because it looks like maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like this says PSD, which is what a Photoshop file would be. And a commenter says, layers don't prove anything, especially if the layers look like completely rendered chunks of the painting. There's been a few people floating around threads since 2024 who have tried to pass up their own AI art as real because, quote, look at the layers, end quote. I'm an artist myself as well as an author. I can tell you there is a lot of variation when it comes to workflow, but this is not it. There are too many red flags to ignore. And another user says, hard to explain without being very technical, but the process of the video doesn't make any sense. She makes things in a way like somebody watched a quick tutorial for easy edits in Photoshop and then used it. Also, the video process is cut to her convenience, skipping the most important process of the rendering. She can use Photoshop in a very basic level to just use the soft brush in a multiply layer to add some shadows and some basic lines to edit the AI failure, like her eyes, but nothing more. And another person says, I'm sorry, but this looks to me like doing a math test when I knew what the expected answer was, but had no idea how to get there. In the first part of the video, she is clumsily coloring as if she doesn't know how to make digital art. Then the video jumps and the coloring is basically over, very detailed, and she's just doing meaningless change. Lastly, we would need to know what is in each individual layer to know if it's legit or not. But honestly, it's not looking good. And then Isabella had DM with some more stuff, where the author basically was like, hey, it's like other artists debunking you. And Isabella was like, if I was a fake artist, I would have deactivated my account or changed my name now. But I'm still here because I'm 100% confident in my work. To be honest, I don't care what others are saying. My job was to show you the truth, and I've cleared my side with full proof. However, it is not okay that you've damaged my reputation based on somebody else's noise. I expect you to either remove the false claims you've posted about me or issue an apology. I stand by my craft and I won't stay silent while my name is being dragged through the mud. Thank you. And the author basically finally says, Kay, I'm the first to acknowledge when an apology is due. I still don't know if it's AI or not, and I don't think I'll ever know because the digital world is messed up. But I will apologize for jumping the gun. I thought I had concrete evidence, concrete enough for me, but I can see why it wouldn't be for others. I still stand by transparency and making informed decisions, but at this point in time, I made a choice to state she was using AI when it's not obvious she did or not. And I realize I could just be gaslighted the heck out of the situation, but I don't think it's fair to accuse before we 100% know. All I can say is those were the facts, and I'll do better in withholding information before we can stay for certain. I let everyone get in my head, and now there's so much noise, I don't know what's real or not. It's your choice to use this artist. This is the work I received from her. The evidence is suspected, but not 100% known if it's AI or not. And another person says, did they really deactivate their threads and post an AI image to their story? And this is the image in question. It's like, artist reality check. When it's time to pay, some clients suddenly disappear. Which is like completely valid, but in this case, I'm curious about your thoughts. At the end of the day, guys, we don't have a smoking gun in the sense that like we don't see them going to Midjourney generating stuff and then painting over it. But everything they've shown so far, to me personally, has not added up to what they're advertising. They're advertising the ability to provide high quality, fully rendered images that look like this. But there's way too many inconsistencies in everything that is shown. There are AI inconsistencies within the piece, like the two eyeballs not matching up, lines across this character's body, and the sketch that looks completely whack, with pants blending straight into the feet. So that's already looking a little sus. And then the artist provided a speed paint, which the speed paint proved literally nothing. The speed paint showed the line art already done. We don't even see the sketching process, which is not a good start. And then secondly, there is a massive jump. We see them put in a little bit of color and then poof, everything is already 95% rendered. That doesn't prove anything. And then the artist is showing, oh, well, look at my layers. And the layers are also not proving anything because there's 5 layers that's just the same thing duplicated over and over again. Also, there's the background here. Where was the background that was being rendered? We don't see any proof of this. The background is again looking a little funky to me because we have a table intersecting into another table back here. So all of that to say, everything is looking a bit suspicious. And every time the artist was asked to provide proof to clarify things, the proof was even more suspicious and didn't clarify anything. So that's always raising a giant red flag. So at the end of the day, again, like what the author said, it's up to you to use them or not. But I do think this is a case where I feel like this poor author was just getting gaslit over and over again by this artist to where it reached a point that the poor author is like, I don't even know. I just feel bad for them, you know? They tried hiring an artist to get the work done and then, and unfortunately, this happened. There's an artist on Twitter that posted some artwork and people were suspicious about their initial post and then they dropped 2 speed paints and people's jaws were kind of on the floor. So let's delve into the situation, and before we get started, again, please don't send hate to any parties involved. So this all kicks off with a post by this artist Divya, and Divya writes, Sanji cooks some bread for Oriheim, commission. And it is some One Piece artwork. Oh my god, also on a complete side note, I have my cat in my lap right now, and he loves like getting pet and his butt slapped while in my lap. He's just drooling all over my leg. But this is the art piece in question. And as you can see, they're holding a tray with some biscuits or some sort of bread on it. And she's looking really, really excited. The art style is a bit unique. It's a very like painterly type style. But there are some oddities with the art piece that already look a little interesting. And a couple ones to note. The big one that's weird is that Sanji from One Piece is holding this tray, right? But they're not actually holding the tray because if you look at the 4 fingers, not the thumb, but the 4 fingers, if they're holding a tray, it would be, you know, wrapped around the bottom of the tray, but it actually isn't. It's holding literally nothing. Only the thumb is actually making contact with the tray, which is already really interesting because if you're capable of this level of composition, lighting, and anatomy, I'm going to assume you're also able to draw the fingers around the tray. instead of holding literally nothing. People in the comments were suspicious about this art piece. Somebody commented, "What a marvelous AI masterpiece. Well done, Maestro." And this actually got ratioed. And the artist responds, "Okay." Another person says, "W art. By the way, can you drop the time lapse of this drawing? I really want to learn from you to improve my art." And then the artist responds, "DM." Another person wrote "commission" in quotes and yikes. And they put it into a AI checker and it flagged it as 98% likely to be AI generated. Again, these are like really hit or miss because look, AI trains off human artists. Sometimes it will flag legitimately human drawn works as AI generated, so it's pretty hard to determine this. But other people were zooming in onto the hand that is not holding the tray properly, and somebody writes "new kind of hover hands." Again, this one is really interesting because it kind of looks like the character was actually holding something else, and then it kind of looked like they just like blocked it in using this bluish gray color to kind of color it out. So after everybody publicly was kind of like, yo, this looks like AI, etc., the artist came out to make their own statement. And Divya says, "To all the people saying I used AI generated art, first of all, I don't. And some people are showing me how one says it's AI generated, but when I checked it, it says it doesn't. So how can two different AIs say two different things? I will upload a time lapse of all my progress from next time." The artist adds, "I hope this will satisfy you all." And another person said, "Yo, you should post the Oriheim and Sanji timelapse though, since Oriheim looked weird in AI." And the artist responds, "Do you think I can magically generate a timelapse after creating it? I was not using Ibis Paints." So again, there are some art programs that will automatically record timelapses as you are drawing. Ibis Paint is one of them, Procreate is another. There are other programs that don't do this. They either don't record it at all, or you have to manually enable something before you start drawing. Clip Studio Paint is one where you have to enable it before you start drawing, and if you enable it after, it doesn't record it, obviously, because you finished drawing. And then the commenter says, "So what was the software though?" And they didn't get a response. So before we delve into the time lapse, let's take a look at more of this artist's artwork so we can get a more full image of this artist's art style, because everybody has a different style. So this painterly style of anime characters is something this artist draws. This is a post from the beginning of May where they write, "Happy birthday, Monkey D. Luffy." And this is their Luffy art piece, which again contains the same anime but painterly style where the face has a very like an anime look to it, but the rest of the image is actually drawn with some pretty large brush strokes, and there's not much like fine detail refinement. Again, that's completely fine. It's just unique to this person's art style, but that's something else that I wanted to add because that's something you can see here. But one thing I do want to add is that while this type of painterly style can be something that you will see within just an artist's art style, this has also been an art style that I have seen personally with other artists that later got called out for tracing art. I call this like the paint by numbers system. Again, if this is your art style legitimately and you hand draw it yourself, that's completely fine. Not saying that about you. I'm just referencing something that I've seen in other cases. This was like an art piece that I made for my friend's birthday many, many moons ago. What I mean by paint by number system is they take like an art piece that they're referencing and then they literally just color select and then they color in a little bit and then they color select another spot and then they color in a little bit more and they color select another spot and then they continue coloring it in. So it's like, yes, they did technically maybe put every brush stroke themselves, but it's not like the piece was officially drawn by them because it was made from color selecting and recoloring in tiny spots from an existing art piece, if that makes sense. That's what I jokingly call the paint by numbers because that's literally what you do in paint by numbers. But yeah, so that is something that I have seen before. And again, it's fine if you have like an art style where you paint with just a large brush and you don't like to refine the art style. That's totally chill, but just don't one by one select off of somebody else's artwork and you make zero alterations to it yourself. This is another example of artwork that they've done. This was an art piece of Rem from ReZero that they also posted. And the reason I'm showing you this is just so that we get an idea of what this artist's art style is before we take a look at the speed paint, because the speed paint breaks this whole thing apart. So Divya posts this speed paints and they write, "Started making a Luffy speed paint as people asked. Also, thank you so much for everybody who supported me, especially when there's like 50 plus people in my DMs asking me the same question the entire night. I was just explaining to everybody in group chat and DMs." And so this is the speed paint they posted, where it's not a completed speed paint at all. They draw in a stick figure and they start blocking in the torso, the head, and the legs, but they cut one leg off at the knee and the other leg, they cut it off at the foot. So we don't actually see the foot or the bottom of the other leg. Already there's so many issues because this speed paint looks nothing like the quality they're promising with the other artworks they have. Again, if this is your drawing naturally, that's completely fine. What we're debating is, did this artist legitimately draw this piece and the Luffy piece and the Rem piece. And if you look at these pieces, besides the weird hover hand for the tray of breads, the anatomy is very spot on for this piece. Same thing for the Luffy one, you know, it's a more complex pose, it's a low camera angle, and the anatomy looks very spot on for this Luffy piece as well. So why do we have like a speed paint like this where the anatomy of the legs are very off? Like this leg just looks completely crunched in, and then the lower leg is very narrow relative to the rest of the body. And judging by, you know, the fact that it's a lower angle, it probably would be larger just because things closer to the camera typically will appear larger. This is already looking really off. And then the artist continues. The best thing that happened yesterday was that I got to know people who I knew for years and still chose to get a banger when they got a chance, rather than asking me once before. But it's all good as I got to know about it at least. So referencing like fake friends, I guess. Once again, thank you so much to everybody. I went back to IBIS Paint X as it's the easiest to record on, but I don't need my laptop to make art. This is easy too. So I'm already confused because they said they don't use IBIS Paint. Some artists swap drawing programs. I do. Sometimes if I draw on my tablet, I'll draw on Procreate. If I draw on my computer, I draw on Clip Studio Paint. So maybe to go do the speed paint, you know, they're going to go back to their program. But come on, let's be honest here, okay? If you are trying to defend AI accusations, why would you drop the most half-finished, half-baked speed paint ever, right? This is not going to clear your name at all. Sure, maybe you don't have access to this speed paint for this piece specifically, but can you just redraw another art piece of the same level as this one? A fully rendered piece of this quality with 1 or 2 characters in some dynamic sunlight so that we can get a reference for your skill level? Because the skill level of this sketch in the speed paint, which again, they didn't even sketch it, they just blocked the body. There is no hair, there's no clothing, there are no eyes, nothing. This is not gonna clear your name. And again, I always find it so funny when like alleged AI fake artists, right, try to clear their name because like they do the most half-baked attempts ever in terms of speed paints, recordings, whatever, and they're always like, oh, this broke, that broke, whatever. Maybe there's a legitimate case, right, where something broke. But I feel like if you put yourself in the shoes of somebody who drew something legitimately and then you are falsely accused of using AI, you're gonna pull out probably every bell and whistle, everything you know to prove, like, hey guys, I didn't use AI because you did it, right? Here are the layers, here's a speed paint, here's me streaming the art. I'll do anything because I didn't use AI. This person didn't even try. They didn't even post a finished speed paint. Sorry, I just got back from EDC. This is just funny as hell. And people in the comments are not buying it. People are saying things like, girl, if you have such great art skills as you claim, this is not how your rough sketch should look like. Just give up. You are making it worse for yourself at this point. Another commenter says, you clearly know nothing about anatomy and proportions. Another person said, who even draws a wireframe like this? LMAO. So then the artist Divya doubles down and they write part 2. Also to everybody saying why I didn't reply at night. Like, bruh, am I gonna stay up the whole night? It was nighttime in my country. Like, the F? Good morning. Which also people were mentioning this artist's nationality while debating this. I don't think it's fair to bring in somebody's nationality as like an accusation as to this is proof. That's just you being racist, man. Don't do that. So they continue where they start drawing in details for Luffy. You are lying. You are lying. I'm just being honest here, okay? Come on, we have eyeballs. If you look at this sketch is that level of an intermediate artist, you know? But this sketch would not be done by somebody who had painted this because this is a pretty dynamic pose, interacting with the bun, stuff like that. And the anatomy is all correct here. Again, minus random hover hand going on. The anatomy is completely off here, right? This leg is chopped. This leg proportionally is like the same length as like the arm, which doesn't make sense because it's a leg, so it should be longer. Not to mention, again, the art piece has characteristics of somebody who's more of a beginner, etc. in art. There is like shakier feathering for the line work, which is also odd because if you think about it, this is a sketch with line art now. By the way, I want to add, they didn't draw the head and they also didn't draw the below the knee for the other leg. So weirdly still have a really cropped version of the art, but all of their other art pieces don't have line art in it. There's no line art in the 3 images that I showed you, which are the 3 main art pieces on their page. So how come suddenly you're drawing with line art? And not to mention the line art is also, again, very shaky. It's very feathery, which is something that you would see in somebody who's less confident in their line work. My cat is trying to break into my room again. And the final question is, once again, why show a half-baked sketch if you're trying to clear AI accusations? Why not just show a full speed paint? Because this is still line art at best, choppy sketch at worst, right? This is not a completed piece at all. This is still not going to clear your name if you legitimately drew those other pieces. But going by the skill level of this sketch versus the other art pieces, there is no way in hell these were drawn by the same person. And people in the comments are not buying it. People are saying like, the way you're doing this sketch proves it. You didn't draw the earlier pieces. Another person says, my sketches and the way I go about them aren't great. But this, there's no logic behind any of the guidelines or what is put on top. I will stand corrected, sure, but for now, I can't see you drawing the previous pieces with this kind of foundation as a sketch, which I, again, agree. Every artist has their own process for sketching. As long as it makes sense to you, that's what makes sense. Sometimes the sketches look nasty, but you can cook out, you know, a perfectly beautiful looking finished piece. But again, also this person isn't showing us a speed paint for a finished piece. We literally only have a speed paint of a sketch to go off of. So that is what the public is going to judge you on, because that's all you're providing people. And then the artist adds in a more finished version of the sketch, where now I think because people were dogging on the anatomy, they fixed the leg anatomy a little bit more. So they made the leg larger and they drew in the head, where again, now the sketch again looks weird, because the head is done with such fine line work, where the line weight is so much thinner than the rest of the body, where again, it's like very odd. And you don't often find artists who will draw like this, man, who will make the line art for only the head really thin and really fine, and the rest of the body with a much thicker line art. And people were not buying it at all. This viral quote retweet says, sometimes following AI art discourse is funny because you see people who are clearly using AI not understanding how art works, so they end up embarrassing themselves completely. And those two speed paints cracked open the internet suspicions of being like, dude, okay, something looks really off here. And they delved into more of this artist's work. This was an older piece they posted May 2nd, which also they write work in progress first commission. So for more context about this artist, they were talking on their page that they haven't posted any drawings and they only started posting artwork in like May. So all of their followers were like, oh, I didn't know you knew how to draw. And they're like, I draw sometimes. So again, this is also an artist who we have no public visible history of past artwork to see like a progression, because they've only been posting in like May, maybe like beginning of April or something. This is a traditional piece they posted, which is like a silhouette of somebody walking and you can see Luffy in the bottom corner. Just remember that because we will revisit that. Let's go back to the REM drawing, where the artist, by the way, actually deleted the REM drawing off your page because of this post. And this user writes, LMAO AI image. The biggest giveaway is the weapon, LOL. In the original piece, the flail is smashing into the wall and creating debris behind it. But here, the AI mistakes the destruction effect as part of the weapon itself, creating chains on both sides. So this is the original image where, as you can see here, the flail is hitting into the wall. So this is Rem's weapon. Rem uses this like massive chain with this like spiked ball at the end, and it's hitting the ground here. And also OP added this as the original drawing. Sorry, had a video break from my cat because he was breaking the door down again. But yeah, this was the original drawing posted by ReZelos, which is the mobile game for ReZero that shut down in 2023. But as you can see in the full drawing, Rem has that chain with the spiked ball at the end and it's hitting the wall. And here, looking at the side by side, you can see in the AI piece, it makes it look like the chain or the weapon is this like very cylindrical weapon and there's chains on both ends of it, which is wrong. And also in Rem's hair, there is a flower with 2 ribbons coming out of it, and there's 3 in the AI piece. Yeah. And this was the piece that Divya had claimed to draw themselves. Another person added, even their traditional art is not theirs. This was a commission and they traced the other artist. So remember that pencil drawing that I showed you about the Luffy? Well, we have this one. But people commented that call out post about the Rem piece under Divya's post, being like, how do you explain this? And Divya responds, how is that AI? I use the reference image, bruh. It's literally a publicly available image. People draw without reference. So they're literally claiming that they drew this themselves, even though the chain and the bows and stuff are completely mucked up. Nobody's buying that for a second, dude. But after all of that, their speed paint actually got community noted, where it says the artist's previous work include AI-generated images, such as the Rem illustration where wall debris was misinterpreted as extra chains on the flail and traced traditional drawings. And the other community note says, time-lapse videos can be faked using AI tools that generate simulated drawing processes from final images. And Divya adds, community notes, time-lapse video can be made using AI. If any of you can make a fake AI-generated 3-minute time-lapse video like this and post it here, I'll believe anything all of you has ever said. Which, on a side note, I actually don't think this video, this painting process is AI generated. I think they actually drew this themselves and that this genuinely is their skill level for art, which is fine, but that this clearly is not what they were showing with their other art pieces. Because as you can see with this speed paint here, where they draw in the Luffy head, you can tell that this is a speed paint of somebody who is not fully confident or fully experienced with the drawing program they're using. Basically, they're drawing the entire sketch on one layer and then erasing more scuffed versions of their earlier sketches to draw more of the other sketch on top of it. Which again, that's totally chill if that is your art process, but that's not the most common thing you would see with artists. Typically, they would just make another layer on top of it and then clean up the sketch on the new layer without having to constantly erase and redraw, erase and redraw. But that's fine if that's how you want to do it, right? But regardless, the anatomy, everything, the posing, the line work, that does not look like any of their other artworks. And the final thing that people were pointing out with this artist is that they were dropping fully rendered pieces like every other day, maybe like every 3 days, okay? And all of a sudden it's taking them a really long time to make this time lapse. So people are like, why is it taking you so long to drop a full time lapse of a fully illustrated image when you were making them so fast earlier? And that is another tell of, okay, is this person using AI or legitimate? If they're dropping fully rendered works that should be taking 8 to 10 hours, like literally every day, because either they're burning themselves out or they have a massive backlog, which this artist doesn't seem to have one because they have no previous examples of their work. It's interesting, it's suspicious, maybe they just have a lot of free time. But what are your thoughts on this entire situation? Because this most definitely to me is somebody who was AI generating some images, trying to pass it off as legitimate, and then got caught and tried to back it out with a speed paint that was not clearing their name at all. So again, don't send hate to any parties involved, but I thought this was just a funny situation. So with that, if you like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. I just was at EDC. That was my first EDC this weekend. It was so fun. My favorite set was Subtronics. I had a really good time. So if you guys went, let me know in the comment section below too. And who is your favorite artist at EDC? Which was your favorite set? Again, mine was Subtronics, but there was like a crazy drunk guy that like somebody shoved into my friend and I, and we kind of got knocked back by that. And we were like, dude, what? Let me just vibe in peace. I hope everybody has some popcorn and boba because this story is an absolute doozy of a ride. It's an author who commissioned an artist, was so excited to receive the work, and then slowly started putting pieces together and realizing that maybe what they paid for isn't actually legitimate. It's a wild ride, so let's strap in, and again, don't send hate to any parties involved. This all kicks off on Threads, and it's posted by Threads user Char Josephine Latte, or Charlotte Josephine. They are an author who is launching their debut novel, and they write, "Hi artist, the worst has happened. My artist sent over a photo that I think is the finished artwork, and it looks like it isn't done in the same style as the reference image of their previous works. It's horrible. I was a bit worried about this, as their portfolio seems in a completely different art style. And they sent me some artworks saying it was done under NDA. I can't find them anywhere online, but I worry that it's not this artist's work. Am I entitled to a refund?" And this was the first post that kind of kicked it all off. A lot of people in the comments were very kind in terms of offering some assistance. People speculated that it was possibly AI, where the author felt like it definitely is not AI. And a lot of people felt like the NDA stuff was a bit suspicious because this is an author, so we are talking about the book art space. A lot of people felt like, hey, NDAs aren't really something that happens unless you're working with like the top 5 traditional publishing companies. So that's odd. But secondly, if they sent you photos of the work covered under the NDA, that means they broke the NDA to send you the work. So that means they're unprofessional, and that's also weird. People were also asking how OP found the artist, and they said that they found them on Reddit, r/hungryartists, and that is a subreddit where a lot of artists will promo their work in terms of looking for commissions. But overall, a lot of people are empathizing with the author and also asking for a little bit more information. So a little while the same day, the author starts feeling a bit disheartened, writing that they messed up on their first art commission, that they ignored a lot of red flags due to the fact the work that was sent was not actually on the artist's portfolio, and the artist had falsely claimed it was done under NDA. And the author said it was because they were so enchanted by the work that they didn't have a lot of money to throw away and that they were looking for an artist above the 300 euro mark. They add, "If I can't be refunded for this, I can no longer publish my work." I just want to add again, like, please, let's have a little bit of empathy here, right? I saw a lot of people blaming the author, being like, you should have known better. This is what you get for commissioning a cheap work. The actual price of their commission looked to be around £500, okay? So this is not somebody who was like going to the cheapest artist possible, you know, being like, oh, $30 for like a fully illustrated thing. A lot of people are like, hey, you know, if it sounds too good to be true, you're gonna get scammed. This is an author who saved up, scrimped and saved a lot of money, £500, to get a fully illustrated cover. That is a price range that is a lot more standard for what you're purchasing. So it wasn't like they went to the cheapest artist possible. And also, this is their first art commission. So a lot of people, again, are like, well, how did you ignore these red flags? You should have realized this. These are like red flags that, again, you would maybe recognize if you've done a lot of art commissions, you've commissioned a lot of artists, you know what to look out for. This is this person's first art commission. They, on paper, did everything right. They found the artist within a reasonable price range for what they're looking for. You know, they looked at their portfolio, they like what they saw, they commissioned this artist, it's their first commission, and it just sucks that this happened for the first one. So anyways, I don't want people blaming the author because I saw some people saying stuff like that. Have some empathy, guys. You saved so long. This is your debut novel. You're trying to get the cover done, and then you get scammed out of 500 pounds, allegedly. We'll continue to look at the story. It just sucks. And this is the extra context the author added. What the artist who scammed me sees. New client willing to spend 500 pounds on a piece, commissioning multiple artists at once, one cover and one interior illustration. What they don't see. The 2 years of shivering to scrape pennies through the winter months without heating, never going out anywhere, commissioning anything, and thrifting everything I have. The nights spent refreshing and crying to myself about how much I love the art they supposedly made, only to realize it was never their style at all. So a little while later, the author had another update, basically adding that, they're taking back their judgment a little bit, and they feel like maybe optimistically, this could be something that's legit. Their gut still tells them that something might be wrong, and they received a work in progress, but they're optimistic that maybe the work in progress, could be modified a lot so the final product would actually end up looking like what they were promised, what they were advertised. And there are a lot of really cool artists in the comment section showcasing their before and afters. Here we have this artist writing probably the worst work in progress I sent, yet the author trusted the process. But I learned from this a lot, and now my sketches are much closer to the final. This is their before, and then this is the final piece. And holy absolute jaw on the floor, stunning, gorgeous, beautiful. This is so pretty. Plus, like, oh my god, the tension, the way that he's grabbing at her skirt. Oh my god, I love. Okay, I need to know what this is for. Like, what book is this for? Because I need this right now. This art has sold me. Oh my god, wait, upon further digging, this book is Lore of the Tides, which is actually book 2 of the Lore of the Wilds duology. Ooh, I did not finish book 2. I didn't know it got spicy like this. Anyways, I'm derailed. Another artist showed their before and after, adding some extra context, and the author says thank you. Unfortunately, the problem is their portfolio is all in a similar style to this work in progress, and they don't have any socials. The reference image they sent me was in an entirely different style though, but I can't find it anywhere online, so I trust that they're the original author of the work, and that was the style I paid higher for. In order to match that with this work in progress, it would have to differ quite a lot from the line work and shading that they've done. So the author had another update adding, hey, new update, the artist is gonna send work in progress of the reference works so that I can see how they are before the final render to prove they are the OG artist. So all of that sounds really optimistic. Okay, maybe they're gonna give some examples so that, we know, okay, this is just their process. It's a really big trust the process, but that you're gonna end up with a final product that you like. But then the author added this. Update on being scammed by my artist. Red flags for AI has been identified. Not only is their portfolio in a range of different styles, but I've been informed the 2 reference images have hallmarks of AI. The reference images I've been staring at and dreaming of for my book. I am gutted. The artist stayed kind of professional and offered to share progress images to prove the art is theirs, but it's been a day and I haven't seen it. I feel like they're fabricating something, though I don't understand why they wouldn't back down knowing they cannot deliver the final image. And another commenter is like, hey, just because they have a lot of varied styles in their portfolio, it doesn't necessarily mean they use AI. And to this, I agree, right? Because like a lot of artists do work in multiple styles. They will have like one main style and maybe they'll have a chibi style and a very like sketchy-esque style. I would say the one differing factor is like most of the time, you can still tell that it was made by the same person. Artists have their own art style and they have a tendency to use specific types of line work, or they lean towards specific colors, like maybe they prefer pastels. So you would see that in their finished fully illustrated works and in their chibis. Sometimes artists have a very specific way they like to render, so they like to use a lot of cross-hatching even in their final digital renders, and you'll see that throughout their art pieces. And the author adds some extra context, writing multiple signatures in the portfolio and by multiple art styles. I mean like 50 in completely different styles. They added more since I commissioned, and I was just so blinded by the reference I loved. And yeah, that one's the big one. If it looks like it's done by 50 different people, it might be done by 50 different people and be stolen. But then we get a speed paint, and the speed paint is looking mad weird. So let's delve into this. So a day later, the author posted update. Art threads. The artist I suspected of using AI just sent me these progress videos. Please weigh in. They're still not the same style I was commissioning for, but do you see it? watch the coloring stage. All your feedback might be the difference to help me being able to achieve my dream of publishing and getting a refund. Because the author probably has to collect evidence to submit to PayPal to make sure they can get the refund. This is the speed paint they sent. And oh my god, my jaw is on the floor because this is the most atrocious attempt at fake a speed paint I've probably ever seen. So first off, this quote-unquote artist works in Photoshop. And I myself also do use Photoshop. Yeah, and then look at the final render. What is happening here? It literally was like the artist was like, oh my god, this freaking author keeps asking for a speed paint. Ugh. The author probably doesn't know anything about art, so I'm just gonna go give the crappiest speed paint no to man and try to pass that off. Because like literally anybody can look at that and in 1 second clock the fact that something looks wrong. Because in my personal opinion, that is most definitely a fake speed paint. Look, I use Photoshop, okay? In Photoshop, there is the toolbar on the left-hand side that shows you what tool is selected. If you're using a brush, you know, it would have right there, that brush is highlighted. Why is that cropped off in the speed paint? The speed paint crops in everything except the toolbar, which on its own is really freaking weird because why would that be the case? Why won't you just record the entire screen? It is more effort to crop the toolbar off. And in my opinion, the only reason you would do that is if you're doing something illegitimate, like you're using the eraser method to go and try to scam a speed paint by erasing, and then you don't want people to know you have the eraser selected. I covered another video where there was a fake speed paint where it looked almost legitimate, except in the corner you could see they have the eraser selected instead of having the brush tool selected, so that they were actually doing some eraser shenanigans. And like, if you don't know what the eraser scamming method is, it literally is like you have your art piece, right? In quotes, this little shitty ass smiley face, and then you have a layer on top that's white. And what you do is you take the eraser and then you kind of like erase away at the white layer, and it's like, oh my god, look guys, I'm drawing a smiley face. Yeah, except I didn't, because I'm just erasing a white layer on top. I didn't draw this, right? I'm only erasing. So when we take a look at the speed paint and slow it down in our editing program, we notice that there is a lot of stuff wrong with this speed paint. Number one, with every brushstroke this quote-unquote artist makes, somehow 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines appear. If we look at the arm, that's one brush stroke made all of these lines appear. This one, 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 this one. Does not make sense to me at all, because with one brush stroke you make one line, okay, with the exception of some fancy brushes that you can make 3 lines at a time, but then that means that brush would only draw 3 lines. It wouldn't draw 3 and then suddenly become 4 and then suddenly become 3 again. That's just not how it works. You don't magically make extra lines appear. This is most definitely a fraud. So one, that already is wrong. Secondly, that I forgot to point out is the fact that you cannot see the layers. Where are the layers? Either they are intentionally hidden or intentionally cropped off. But regardless, if you're trying to post a speed paint to clear your name, to convince the author that commissioned you that you are legitimate, you want to show everything. You want to show the tools you're using. You want to show your layers. So why is this cropped off? Every single time that I've seen a AI scammer submit a speed paint, they're always filmed really weirdly with the shittiest iPhone ever and cropped in the weirdest way. It is so much more work to record yourself drawing and then crop all the stuff out of it than just submit the entire recording. That's already weird. And point number 3 is the brush weight. You see the circle right here, right? That is the size of the brush. So every stroke made with this brush should be this thick. It should have the diameter of this circle. But why is every single line that appears is like a fraction of the size of the circle? That just, again, does not make sense unless you're using like a pressure pen. But again, this does not look like it's one of those. So all of these, it's already giving me massive red flags. This is absolutely a scam. But also, how are they scamming? Because what I think they're doing is actually different from what we've seen previously. Because if you guys have watched a lot of my videos, there is another artist that I've talked about that submitted a fake Photoshop speed paint in which they use the eraser tool. That's what I just talked about, where they make a white layer on top and they erase the white layer to make it look like they drew the artwork. But here you can see it is actually the brush tool that's selected. So what I think is happening is that they actually have a layer with the line art that they didn't do themselves, that they probably took from AI or something. And then they actually made the line art layer a really, really light gray. So it looks like it's a sketch. Because that's what we can see here. That is what is visible. So they probably did something like this, right? And then my guess is they actually have a clipping layer over it. And then they have their brush set to black. So it looks like they drew it, but they actually did it. And they're just painting over the clipping layer. But that's the reason why their brush is so much bigger than what line is actually appearing. Because they're just doing something like this You know, oh my god, look at me drawing the cat, ha 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 ha. Even though I am not actually, I'm literally just freaking playing coloring book with this. That's what I think this scammer is doing. But yeah, let's continue looking at the speed paint. You see what I mean, right? Because like there's just so many lines appearing and the brush that they're using is just way thicker than the actual lines that are appearing, which just makes no sense. But the quote unquote artist does this for a while, which I also want to add, just looking at this, there's a lot of AI looking anomalies happening. All of this like crunching happening in this corner. A big one is, again, you want to ask yourself, like, would a human draw this? Would a human draw the sleeves to look like some crunched up diamonds? Probably not. This fake artist is not even attempting to hide the fact that they're scamming. What's also odd is there's no corrections whatsoever. This artist, in quotes, never has to redo a brushstroke. Look at this like ornamental detailing. They somehow get perfectly straight lines on the first try without using the line tool in Photoshop. Come on, you're not a god. You cannot make this happen. Like, everybody, when it comes to drawing these types of ornamental details that has like very, very geometric straight lines, you're gonna have to redo it over and over and over again, because on the first try, you're not gonna get a perfectly straight line. But somehow this artist, the goat themselves, every brushstroke is also immediately perfect. It's just so odd. And then we get to the rendering. Look what the hell is happening here. So now we get to the blank page. They have the eraser, okay, selected in Photoshop, set to like 90. And they start erasing to magically make the finished product appear. Did they just give up? They actually spent some effort scamming in the first half with that fake sketch line art clipping mask shenanigans. And then they got to the render and they're like, oh, I don't know, man. Let's do the eraser tech. The funniest thing to me is they're using a hard brush. They're not even using like a soft brush to try to make it look more believable. Look, one brush doesn't paint 10,000 different colors. How are you painting 20 different shades of green with one brush? And by the way, we cannot see their color wheel, so we don't know what colors they're using. They start coloring. And then I guess they get lazy halfway through because they just make the brush like ginormous. They use a different brush that's set to 250, which is massive. And then they just magically paint all the colors of the background. Somehow they managed to paint in words too, with the exact same brush words appear. By the way, take a look at the name of this Photoshop file. We can't see the full name, but it says something ver new Photoshop. Do you think it says paint over new Photoshop where they're painting over the image? They then undo all their fake erasing and then toggle on the faint, already done background. So they're lowering the opacity of their fake white eraser layer to then continue erasing. Unironically, this wins the award for the shittiest fake speed paint that I've ever seen. At a loss for words. And again, I feel so freaking bad for this author. This is comedic, honestly, at how awful this is. So up until the point of the speed paint being posted, people were 50-50, kind of giving the unnamed artist benefit of doubt. After the speed paint came out, everybody was stepping on this artist's neck, being like, dude, this is wrong. The top comment says, not the full render at the end, who are they fooling? Another person says, at least they're providing proof they're scamming you. Another person said, I'm sorry you got scammed and lied to as well. You should tag this person, the world needs to know. And the author says, unfortunately, they don't have any social accounts, just the Reddit one I commissioned with. And they're known as a scammer on r/hungry artists. But the community doesn't name or shame on there, so there was a no ban list I could find them on. People are saying, LOL, the end was so insane, I'm sorry for cackling. After all of this, you know what's the wildest part? The fact that the artist is actually doubling down. So the author posted this conversation they had on Reddit with this artist, in quotes. So the author basically says like, hey bro, you're scamming me with AI. And the artist says, I'm sorry you feel that way. That is such a like a manipulative thing to say. Like, I'm sorry you feel shitty for me scamming you, haha. But they continue. But I genuinely disagree with the accusations that the video are AI generated or fake. The work in progress I shared came directly from my drawing progress, and I've been transparent throughout the commission. You mentioned yourself earlier he didn't doubt my ability to draw or the legitimacy of the current commission work. So I feel the situation has become more about distrust around an unrelated NDA sample piece rather than the actual artwork I delivered for you. I've tried to cooperate, provide work in progresses, revisions, and clarification whenever possible, and my intention was to never mislead or scam you. Like, just note what this person is saying. They said, it's not my intention to mislead you, and I'm sorry you feel bad. They never said, I did not scam you with AI. It's a very roundabout way, the way they responded, but look what they said. The work in progress I shared came directly from my drawing process. Your fake drawing process. Yeah, you opened it in Photoshop, but you painted over it with an eraser. Hello? So then the author basically doubles down, being like, your work in progresses are fake. And the artist says, to avoid any misunderstanding, can you clarify whether you're referring to the current commission work or the older NDA sample piece I previously showed you? This person is literally purposely being obtuse. Come on. You know you are scamming, but you're pretending that you're not. There's actually another layer to this story because remember how this author had two pieces of artwork, right? The cover, and they also had an interior design that they were working on? There's another layer. The author a day ago makes this post writing update. After being scammed by an AI artist, I am now learning it's highly likely my interior art illustration is also a scam. I'm just trying to hear from the original artist who this person is pretending to be to confirm. And a commenter says, your situation is astounding. I'm really saddened that we have come to this place where art is just a minefield of BS. I have a ton of experience in every art medium you can think of, and I really want to help you. I don't know if I'm in a position to illustrate an entire comic, but I feel really strongly pulled to your plight. And OP says, you are so kind, and I'm desperately hoping if the artist is a scam, the real artist can come forward so I have proof to request a refund. And their art is phenomenal, so I would have my fingers crossed to recommission the true artist. And an update, the author writes, the original artist has not come forward to confirm or deny whether this is her, but PayPal has already taken down the original invoice for a suspected scam. And the artist has since changed the name they originally sent the invoice under. The artist name to now a name called Zobia Hack. I am so gutted and heartbroken. I don't know if the real artist would be able or willing to do my commission, but I hope to get in contact with her so she can back me up to claim this refund. And this was the communication on Reddit. A user says, I love your idea, blah, 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 blah. I specialize in anime and semi-realistic illustrations. Here is my portfolio. And they link that artist's portfolio. And this is the artist in question, Tanya Anor, and their artwork is absolutely gorgeous, stunning. And OP was so excited. They grabbed the image that they love, being like, I love this is what I'm looking for. And now it might not be them. And an update, another user was able to contact the original artist. They basically said, hey, an author was hired by an artist who's claiming to be you. I want to confirm it's not you, and to let you know that somebody appears to be using your name as a scam. And the artist says, it's not me, and thank you for letting me know. I doubt I can somehow report this person. What is the name of the scammer? The original artist confirmed that in fact is not them. So the author had provided an update basically cautioning everybody against r/hungry artists, stating that if you're going to go commission people from there, to please do your due diligence and double check, cross check, and that they really wanted to commission some small artists. Personally, I want to add the extra context. It's not like they were cherry picking the cheapest people possible. They were purchasing pricey commissions that you would expect for what they're looking for. So it didn't seem suspicious, but that thankfully they found artists to help them do the cover work so that they could still get their book published in October, which is what they're aiming for. And they're actually in contact as well with the interior artist, the original one, not the scammer, says maybe see if something can happen and that they can truly get the vision to life and get the illustrations for their book, for their publishing. So they add the video they shared was not their work in progress, so the style was going to be different, and that the commission was very professional up till they asked for proof, essentially. The big issue was they received the colored layer a few weeks later and the style was completely different from what they asked for. And that they verified this art piece with other artists and they all verified it looked legit and that it was somebody's rough process. So they add that they didn't blindly fall for this, but they bypassed some red flags. And again, I just want to add, guys, empathy goes a long way in this day and age. This is a poor author that got scammed not once, but twice. It was their first time doing a commission. Your first time, you're bound to make some mistakes and maybe overlook some things. There's always going to be things you learn with experience. This was their first time. And again, it wasn't like they were cherry picking the cheapest people possible. It just sucked. Some people are just mean and they're like, it's your fault. I'm just telling you, if you think you're not going to get scammed, you are actually the prime victim to get scammed. That's just how life works. Everybody's going to get scammed one way or another. Sucks that it's like that. And they added another update highlighting the fact that the work in progress video was not stolen from anybody, because some people were also saying that, which is odd. And they added some more clarifications for misconceptions. Again, people saying you've stolen the video, I'm gonna be honest, like I've never seen that video before. And that's a really odd thing to say. The tinfoil hat conspiracy theory the author has is that the scammer actually sent the same video to multiple people, being like, oh, I'm legit, haha, look at this. So there's another claim that, oh, you made this up for clout, where the author says, yo, I'm not. Trust me, bro. They write, I literally recorded the video next to a fridge. You can hear it buzzing, which is pretty funny. Quote, you're stupid to have fallen for it, end quote. And they said, yeah, I bypassed obvious red flags, but I reverse image searched the artist and their works and I found no negative reviews. And they sent me a proper rough sketch and there was no reason to suspect them until the colored version looks nothing like what I asked for. Quote, no scam artist would be dumb enough to send this, end quote. Literally my sentiment. I was baffled. I still am. Which again, I'm saying empathy goes a long way. They conclude saying, I sent this video to multiple IRL friends and families who are not artists and they all saw nothing wrong with the video and thought it was a legit speed paint. I know what a speed paint looks like and I know how hard art is to make. But somehow some people cannot clock that this is fake at a glance, especially people who are older and not familiar with the digital generation. And that's also a big one, right? Like if you're not an artist, etc., you don't know what you don't know. Because Gen AI is trained off of actual human artwork, a lot of Gen AI looks legit. If it's not like the super obvious anime character with 6 fingers and like a melting eyeball, you're gonna look at it and be like, oh yeah, that looks great, you know? I'm so down. You don't know what you don't know. So this is their first commission, etc. Like this author is a victim and the person at fault are the 2 freaking scammers going around faking speed paints. Well, the first one did, trying to scam people out of money. That's the true people at fault that you should be mad at. So I feel like sometimes the internet is quite cynical. So at the end of the day, I truly hope that this author is able to get the beautiful artwork that they deserve for their novel that they're publishing. I hope it's very successful. It sounds really interesting. So yeah, definitely go check them out and send them some love, man, because this absolutely sucks. Ugh, being a victim of a scam in general just feels really bad. I've definitely been there. My partner's been there. He bought a Pokemon card and it was not what was advertised. Guy was scamming. Everybody falls for scams, man. It just sucks. I hate there's so many scammers and it really sucks that like with the proliferation of Gen AI, there's more and more scammers now because there's another tool for them to use to scam people. Did they like fake a monitor to overlay on top of a OBS recording of their speed paint? Look at that. Why is it doing that jump? It's literally for a split second, like right here. And one thing I really want you to take note of is look at the thickness of the monitor edge, which is again, really thin. Right? Can you see it shrinking? And then you might be like, oh, maybe it got too dark so you can't see the monitor anymore. Maybe. That is possible, but take a look right before it gets too dark to see the top of the monitor. It's shrunk half the size of what it used to be in the beginning of the video. Let's go from here back to here. Is this artist tracing AI, passing it off as their own work, and cosplaying as multiple different artists online? Or is it just one unfortunate artist being falsely accused of using AI in their process when they themselves are innocent? Let's take a look at this situation involving this artist by the name of Kiro. This all kicks off with this post made by an account named Wolf. And again, don't send hate to any parties involved. Wolf writes, doing some digging around the comments, it seems Helicopter Food, aka Kurotan, has multiple accounts all with the same style, all with their own Patreons, all using the same format for generating high engagement. No clue, monetary gain maybe? Other accounts include Lappa Lil Pup and Frostbite Nerd. So first off, they have similar styles, a same layout, same format, white backgrounds. They are the same person. This is one of the account's Twitter pages. Going by the name Lappa Lil Pup, here is another account going by the name Yuki, aka Frostbite Nerd. And this is the final and main account we're talking about, Kiro, aka Helicopter Food. One thing I also want to note is like this format of pumping out meme related art pieces with the white background. Just because you do that doesn't mean you've used AI. Does not. But there was already a ring of artists that are based in Cyprus that have a really similar MO of pumping out art literally every single day in the exact same meme format. And it was like basically confirmed that these guys were using AI and it likely was run by like small group of people / one person and they're all related in some way. So this is something that we've already seen before. But again, like other artists also do this for fun. Just because like you participate in this type of like engagement format of art doesn't mean you yourself used AI. But Wolf points out the handwriting being really similar across the 3 accounts. So this is Helicopter Food's handwriting versus Frostbite Nerd's handwriting versus Lappa Lil Pup's handwriting. And they note that the way they cross their T's is very indicative across the 3. One thing also that I'm just looking at is that they all seem to use the exact same brush, which is not the end of the world, especially if it is a default brush within the drawing program. Kiro uses Paint Tool Sai. There just are probably some default brushes that are more popular than others. It's just one interesting thing to note because this brush is like a pen angle sensitive brush. So as you put your pen down and draw, the brush will be the thickest. And as you end your stroke, the brush is the thinnest, right? So as you can see, as they draw their A, as they pull downwards on the tail, it's the thinnest down here. Now, one thing that I'm also looking at the handwriting that I think is super interesting is they write their eyes upside down. I am leaning over a bit because I'm like too lazy to move my drawing tablet, but I'm using a brush in Clip Studio Paint. It is a different program that has a very similar like drawing style where it like when you let go or when you go downwards, right? Like the tail thins out right here. They write their eyes upside down if you notice. Like their eyes look like this, where it is thinner on the top part of the eye than it is on the bottom. I feel like depending on how you were taught how to write, at least from my schooling experience in the US, I was taught phonetics. So you had to like trace letters, right? You are taught to write the eye downwards, like going down. So if you were to write it quickly, it would look like this if you were to dot your eyes like that. But they write it upside down where they pull from bottom up, which is much more rare from what I have seen anyways in terms of writing this letter. It's not very common anyways to see that. Especially between this eye here in this word and then the eye and the frostbite, you can really see the bottom up writing of the eye. Wolf continues, same art style, same person. Top right image was taken from Helicopter, aka Kuro's Trace Speed Paint, and the bottom right image is from their other account, Frostbite Nerd. And this looks to be, I guess, the full image of Frostbite Nerd's drawing. The eye shape is very similar, and the way they draw their eyelid as well, they draw like a line here and they have a little one coming out like this to make like a very sideways looking Y. That's also featured here. They also do like this type of kind of like winged out lashes like this, where you can see, you know, one point here and then one point this way as well. The eye shape is really similar. The face angle is also really similar, with like the head being quite like compressed in a way where the eyes, the nose, and the mouth are all very close together. It's like an art style, right? The angle is also very similar. Playing devil's advocate here, the colors are quite similar, but the shading is different. This person uses like a gradient kind of like under the pupil. This person uses like a half semicircle as part of their shading. One thing to also note though that I find pretty interesting is the brush thickness, and the brush type itself looks also to be the same. Like the brush that is used to do the line art looks the same between top and bottom, which again, if you use an art program and you guys happen to use the same art program, you might just end up using the same brushes. But what are the likelihood that the head angle is the same, the eyes are very similar, and it's like the exact same brush and the exact same thickness as well with the brush. Now Wolf continues, Kuro may have even stolen one of Shut Up Jen's characters, Ouija. There unfortunately exists a model of the character, and it was likely traced as the offending pieces are created November 2025, while the model based off of Jen's art has been around since March 2025. On the left, we have Jen's work of their character Ouija. Notice they are a Dalmatian with one black ear on the left, one white ear on the right. Notably, there is a white heart that's super cute and featured on the left ear. And in Lappa Lil Pup's artwork, you can see that black ear plus white heart combination is featured. Not only that, the hair also looks really similar too, like both in terms of like the style, fluffiness, and they both have white hair. Again, white hair, a lot of characters have white hair. It's a very common color to be used, but all of that styling alongside the very strong similarities in the ears is just very interesting. And this is the Civit AI model based off of Jen's artwork. Now, Wolf also notes that Kuro's Fur Affinity account was suspended since December, and all of their art except one was removed from E621 following an investigation. So here we have the investigation with a whole bunch of dates that is noted. The investigation starts November 1st, 2025, where they're basically going over the art style of Kuro, how Kuro had uploaded 35 images prior to the release of Stable Diffusion, August 2022, and that they hadn't posted art for a while, and then they started posting art again in 2024, and then in an art piece made August 2024, that piece suddenly had a very different coloring style and facial structure compared to their older art pieces, and then from then on, that art style shift was kept in their artwork. And it says that their art started looking more and more similar to popular AI pieces coming around that time. And it notes that starting in 2025, January, they started posting almost every single day, with some days having 2 or more images shared. So again, this is something that's a bit indicative of an account using AI, because fully rendered pieces like that, it's really hard to produce in such high frequencies, right? You might again say, well, you know, maybe they have some backlog of art that they're posting, etc. They have been posting those since 2018. So it does seem like if they had any backlog, it's already been posted to social media. Maybe potentially in the 1 year break they took, maybe they didn't draw for a while, or maybe they drew and just like saved up the art pieces. But it's just interesting that they're showing some tendencies that you will commonly see with AI art scammers. Again, one of them being immediate quick shift in art style that happens to also look very similar to popular AI models at the time, to again posting in very high frequencies. So it notes that Kuro had posted two art pieces they traditionally made, but the investigation added that they themselves feel like they can't fully trust it because there were previous instances of artists who shown that they could draw traditionally, but were still revealed to have used AI. This is again another thing. A lot of these AI scammers actually can draw to some degree. That's honestly the worst part because they can draw and they just chose not to, but that's why they are able to produce traditional works if asked. Then the investigation notes the appearance of another account by the name of Hellhound Uwu, which posted a bunch of AI assisted images from February to late March, I'm guessing around 2025. Then they basically wiped everything, and only at the time that this was written, followed two accounts, Kuru and another account called Jinx, and their Fur Affinity had a Patreon advertisement in the same style of Kuru's promo images on Twitter. So the investigation concludes that this Hellhound account and Kuru are the same person. Then it adds that two video recordings were submitted to E621's janitorial team, and a reasonable human workflow was observed that was consistent with Kuru's newest works, but didn't prove or disprove their pieces from 2023 to 2025. It also notes that of Kuru's Patreon, only 10% of their works showed work in progresses, and of that, only 10 showed line work consistent with the video recording, and the remainder did not. So the investigation concludes, while a subset of their newest and oldest works satisfy a certain level of proof, there are several posts in this middling range that lacks this proof and contains elements not present elsewhere, including their visual content, metadata, and a long period of sustained art output. This is another indication as to potentially this account having used AI to assist their process. It's when they basically don't ever post work in progresses. Again, every artist is allowed to post whatever they want. Some artists choose not to post work in progresses. Maybe they want to like hide their process, keep it mysterious, whatever. But the AI artists in quotes, right, don't post work in progresses because they don't exist, because there was generation, right? So about the art style, Wolf also had this post highlighting the changes. So 2019, this is their My Little Pony art, which they also stopped posting My Little Pony after a certain point. And it highlights, from 2019 to 2023, there's a consistent art style, which is Kuru's real art, made before AI. They had a developing art style, notably in the way they drew long, pointy snouts and muzzles, which you can see. It's quite long, it's quite narrow, and it's quite pointy at the nose here. One, two, here we have like some more examples of that facial structure. And then in their newer art after 2024, their facial structures changed significantly. The muzzle is a lot shorter, a lot boxier, wider. And again, it has that kind of like facial compression of like the face, nose, and mouth being very close together, the head being more diamond shaped. And it reads, a vast improvement, in quotes, in art skill and a sharp style change done in a mere 4 months. After having a consistent art style for nearly 6 years straight, it changes on a whim around when AI art peaks. Even if they were practicing every day, 12 plus hours in that time frame, it's very inhumanly probable to see that kind of progress in just 4 months. People in the comments are again 50-50. Some people are like, yo, I mean, just because you can't improve that quickly doesn't mean other people can't. Like, maybe they did legitimately improve that fast. There are possibilities in which somebody can make very quick improvements in a short period of time. I don't know, maybe you started studying art real hard 12 hours a day, you went to art school, I don't know, right? It's just one of those where like, even with super quick, rapid improvements, which is not common, right? So this artist is already displaying a multitude of uncommon traits, super minimal amounts of work in progresses, a rapid art change where their art happens to fall in the direction of the way popular AI models look at the time, and wildly, wildly frequent outputs of one piece a day, sometimes multiple pieces a day. These are all getting a little finicky, right? You don't often see artists being able to do all of that. If you have one of the extremes, you typically don't have all of the extremes. But again, if somebody improved very rapidly in their art, you typically would see essences of their old style even in their new work, right? Like the longer muzzles. They seem to like it because they did it for like 6 years. So you would probably assume that that would be carried into their newer works as well. But you don't see any of that. The way they draw eyes also changed rapidly. They seem to like the narrow eyes, but they all of a sudden had like a very, very strong shift in the way they did their eyeliner as well for their characters. Because again, you can see in their older art, a lot of their older art has very prominent lower lashes, but the upper lashes are very non-existent. And in their newer art as well, these art pieces feature a lot of like white glistening shine slash highlights that again is not present in like any of their older artworks. You don't see like a strong emphasis on highlighting or shine. It's a lot more of like more realistic skin rendering, like a comic book-esque style, I would say. So it's just interesting. So Kuru, in response, dropped a speed paint. titled "Since Many of You Are Interested in How I Draw." So this is the speed paint in question with a lot of canvas flipping where they are drawing a character from Sonic. I think one thing to note that's also interesting is that on the bottom you can see of the time of the recording, like there's different canvases that are open. I believe they're canvases. I don't use paint tool size, so correct me if I'm wrong, but these are dated. This is November 1st, 2025, also November 1st, 2025. And this is their new canvas. Again, the art process is very interesting. Everybody has a different art process, but I just find it interesting. They go straight in top down, right, with how they draw. And then they immediately go in like drawing the chest and like there's no basically like blocking of the body whatsoever, like head here, torso here, here are the arms, like little sticks for arms, and then we fill in the detail. Everybody draws differently though, so some people do draw like that, but they kind of already had an idea of where like this part of the body was gonna go, where the shoulders are gonna go, but everybody draws differently. But this is again what I find interesting, because take a look here. They're not following their sketch. Like in their sketch, their eye comes all the way out to here, and then look at where they start the line art. They drew the eye like half an inch over to the right. And then again, where they draw the lower lashes, they don't really follow their sketch at all. Same thing with, you can see like some elements here and like here with the zigzags and these swooshes. Like it's following the sketch, but not really. Once again, they're not following the sketch. Again, they're not following their sketch here. Like they sketched in a top with like a fishnet detailing, like a fishnet halter top essentially with like a necklace on. And then they drew like a t-shirt collar. Are they foregoing the fishnets then? I mean, every artist has their own thought process. Maybe midway they change their mind. But I'm just confused as to like why nothing is following the sketch. Like everything is like slightly off. Here, the barbell is a bit lower than where they drew this barbell. This one is like a little bit off from where they drew that. Even this eye swoosh is a little bit off from where the line is on the sketch. Like everything on their liner looks like it's on their sketch slash shifted over half a centimeter to the right. The collar, they drew the choker straight, kind of actually curving downwards if you look at this detail. And then they just drew it the other way. Like again, the shoulder is shifted over to the right a little bit. Like the thong strap is not in the right place again. Everything here is now shifted lower by half a centimeter. What I'm confused about, right? Because like if you have a sketch, you would probably follow it to some degree, I'm gonna assume. Right? Again, some artists, when they come to doing the line art, you're just gonna make like changes on the whim. Maybe you start looking at your sketch and you're like, oh, don't really like the placement of this or that. But like, it looks like they are following the sketch, but everything is moved over a little bit off of the sketch as if they're tracing something you can't see. Right? Like I'm going into this trying to believe the artist. It's just odd to see that everything they're following is almost their sketch, but not quite. Like again, you see the thong is shifted over a little bit. Again, the wing is moved over a bit. And then they just didn't follow their sketch. They just completely changed the outfit, which is like fine. Again, everybody changes their mind. It's just interesting. They didn't follow their outfit, but somehow immediately knew like where to draw the bottom of the shirt, like how to change the shape of the choker so that it matches up with the body pose. And people in the comments are basically saying, yeah, but you've already showed us the speed paint actually, so can we see a newer one? And that's what I'm also really confused about, because like if there is a situation where people are accusing you of tracing or whatever, or like your art process, using an older speed paint is like an interesting choice. And another user, Tira, writes, a lot of people will see a speed paint like this and immediately dismiss tracing claims. What you don't see is the overlay app on top of Psy, which is why during the sketch phase, they never zoom in. And when they rotate, it's done very meticulously. I'll give it to this guy. They went ahead and moved stuff around to make the sketching seem organic. But even if the video is sped up, you can see when they pause for a split second to adjust the overlay on top to match the canvas position. Once the sketch is done, they aren't limited by this and zoom more freely. But most importantly, and something I see with these people tracing smexy girl art, is they always somehow draw perfect bodies and boobs, but the text on the shirt is flat and never accounts for the 3D curvature of the chest. As a certified big chest artist, I know what you are. Again, this speed paint has me so intrigued because somehow they're drawing their line art and everything matches the sketch, and in the upper body it matches perfectly if you shift their line art over, couple arrow keys to the left, and then when it comes to the bottom half of the body, everything is shifted downwards. It's kind of almost as if their overlay on top of their sketch somehow got moved over a little bit in the swap between sketch and line art, and that's why everything is shifted. It's just odd. Like, again, look at the side bang here. The side bang matches the sketch. It's just shifted over. Like, how is the entire piece moved over like this? Your sketch and your line art isn't gonna match one-to-one, but this oddity is just strange. So in response to people not believing that speed paint, Kuro posts another one. And this aroused even more suspicions. Because again, the accusation was the fact that they traced off of an overlay, right? Wolf adds this video, the same speed paint they falsified from 2 months ago. You think they would make a new time-lapse or live stream, but I guess it's too much effort to fake a new one. So in their video, they showcase a program called PureRef. I've actually never heard of this before. So you open a AI-generated image or whatever you're gonna trace, okay? And then with some setting changes, like under appearance, making the application transparent, and then making it transparent to mouse, you can trace it. And if you record your speed paint using OBS, and it says, don't move your layer or zoom in and out as much, otherwise you'll have to line up the AI image in PureRef to trace again. So here you can see them showcasing that. If you zoom in too much, right, now it's not lined up to the reference anymore. You're gonna have to resize it to the reference and keep drawing. And it adds, in OBS, if you set paint tool side to window capture, you can hide the fact that you're using PureRef. If you're using like a desktop capture, it captures everything on your desktop. So that's what it would look like, which is so interesting, which is why my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, I'm curious about your thoughts, why there might be a situation where your line art is not matching up to your sketch, right? Because you are tracing something that we can't see, but I guess somehow in the zoom in and out, you didn't line it up exactly. So maybe the image that you were tracing somehow shifted slightly over from your sketch. So now you're tracing the line art of the image and doesn't quite match your sketch because your sketch, moved. But in response to that, Kuro adds another speed paint, writing, I don't blame anyone for being confused. It's genuinely hard to tell what's real and what's not on social media these days. I don't hold it against anyone who got caught up in this. I want to say thank you to those who stayed kind through all of this. Love you all. And they have another video. So on the bottom, we can see that OBS is recording. And this way, because they're recording their screen, we can't see that they have PureRef or anything else open. So they start drawing a head, drawing a bottle. Now they're lining their sketch. Again, what's interesting here is that their liner actually matches their sketch now. So then they added my phone died. So we get a new clip. And you might think, well, they recorded their screen, so it's a done deal. But people were very suspicious about this. A fair amount of people in the comments were really supportive though, being like, yeah, you proved it all, like, da-da-da-da. Other people are still very skeptical. We have people writing things like, have you tried streaming? Because that would be the best way to tell everyone you're not tracing. Other people write, I don't want to get involved, but curious as to why you only sketched on the not flip version of your canvas and only flip it, but you don't sketch anything. People are saying that things are morphing. They're adding things like there's no canvas pan, doesn't zoom or make corrections in line art. There's no undo, no rotating, and it suddenly looks more competent and natural as they start colors because you can't trace colors. And Wolf quote retweets this writing, this is a convenient angle you chose to shoot to hide your layers panel out of frame. So now we can't determine if you're tracing from an image within Psi hidden by chroma keying. Also, your phone battery happens to run out just after you're done with sketching and lining and starting to color. At which point you would no longer need to be tracing anymore for the rest of the process. No time is disclosed between these 2 points, and your computer clock would be a nice way of keeping track of the time lapse, but it's also conveniently out of frame with this fixed odd angle you chose. It's good you show your taskbar, no PureRef or other third-party apps to overlay with, and this is the first time you're using desktop capturing with OBS, as we can see the Psi title bar too. However, these used as proof would be rendered moot with chroma keying. And yes, IRL time-lapses can be fake with chroma keying. It's been done before, as in the case of Asami Arts. Which, by the way, Asami Arts is an artist that was exposed for tracing, and they posted a speed paint, and it was revealed they chroma keyed out of the speed paint. The reason you could find out is because in the corner you can see the color wheel, and in the sketching phase, the green is completely missing out of the color wheel, and it comes back in the second half of their art. Hello, your phone didn't magically glitch. You actively chroma keyed the green out in half the video. And they write, there was no color on the canvas other than black and white prior to the dead phone. And whether blue/green chroma keying, it would give them away with the Psi detection pen, blue, or the character's palette, green eyes. And another person adds, I don't understand the phone dying. There's no difference in the video, but also a red flag for me is no zooming during sketching or line art. So let's once again take a look at this, right? Again, this is a very interesting camera angle to use because as you can see, right, all the layers are missing. You can't see any of the layers and you also cannot see the computer clock. However, we can see the computer's fans. Like, I don't know, for the love of God, can't you just, whatever tripod you have your phone on, can't you just like turn your phone so we can see all of your computer screen? Also, just take a look at this because I'm going to speed this up, right? Look at their sketching phase and their line art phase. There's no zooming, but take a look at this speed paint that they posted in November and I'm going to like scrub through it, right? They're zooming in and out of the canvas. As you can see, the canvas is small. Oh, they're fully into the canvas now to do the line art. They're zooming in and out, in and out. Now they start coloring. It's just odd that your art process changes so much, from zooming into the canvas to you'd literally never hit the scroll wheel again in this speed paint somehow. Like they didn't zoom in once. They only start zooming in, by the way, when they're coloring. That's the only time they start zooming in. Never did it prior to coloring, but in their other speed paint they did. So other people are pointing out a really interesting other factor in their video. Somebody writes, how can your screen's frame have a black outline? And somebody says, many computer screens have a black outline around them as that's where the resolution ends and there's no LEDs. Mine falls victim to that too. And somebody says, for the screen, sure, maybe, but surrounding the screen? And this is what they're referring to. These two lines right here. Let's revisit the speed paint. This is their monitor? Like the side angle of their monitor, I'm guessing? Because look, after their phone died, what is this like wobbly line? Maybe they just have a really thick monitor, but like this is the end when their phone died. This is the beginning. What are these lines? And then as you can see here, midway through, the middle chunk of the line fades away, but the rest of it remains really dark and opaque. Like just watch this. And then the resolution gets real crummy after right here. And another user adds, I think it's weirdly drawn and on top of the monitor so they can hide it. And you can see how closely the side of the PC moves, but not the art program somehow. You need to look really closely to see it. And in the time lapse, you can see a poorly drawn bluish white blob appearing out of nowhere. Look how it's covering the black line somehow weirdly. I think it's all hand drawn. So here, this is the blob they're talking about. That was what I was telling you to look at. I also noticed the recording of OBS. So there's two theories. Because again, right, they have OBS recording, but they showed us a phone footage of their screen. So what exactly was OBS recording? Maybe they were recording an OBS version of the speed paint of their whole screen, but they never posted it. I mean, you don't have to post everything and record, but they say their theories. One, recording the time lapse to later overlap it under the hand-drawn monitor. Or two, recording it with the phone through a green screen and recording a time lapse on the PC. Later again to overlap it with hidden traced art with a hand-drawn monitor. And I think one thing is interesting is what this user wrote. They write, again, the biggest tell is to try to place yourself in their shoes. Quote, if you were being accused of tracing AI, what would you do to prove your innocence? End quote. Showing myself drawing something with my hands, or streaming my art. Showing as much as I could, not these weird choices. Because, yeah, how come like everybody that's traced AI somehow has the crappiest, shittiest phone recording of their screen with the weirdest angles? There's always something cropped off, I swear, right? Like half the time you can only see half the screen, or it's literally like 240p, or this one, you know, you don't see their layers and the time on the computer conveniently. Like it's kind of like if you are innocent and you're trying to prove your innocence, you're doing a horrific job of clearing your own name with some of these angles. For me, I'm just confused about these two lines because these lines, I would truly be curious if somebody could recreate this with their own monitor, like film your monitor from this angle and somehow get these two really sharp, thin, dark lines on the side of your monitor. I am so confused. The border of their monitor is actually quite thin. So I don't know how you get a depth this thick out of your monitor. Like, it just looks so odd. And then again, when you scrub through, midway through, there's like a blob that appears that just distorts half the lines. I just think this top border is very interesting. Maybe I'm wearing my tinfoil hat for a little too long, but I'm so intrigued. Look at the top border of their monitor. But by the way, this is an extremely thin border for a monitor, but maybe you got some shmoney like that. Why does it like shrink midway through the video? Okay, we got to here in the video, right? I slowed the video down. Do you see that? I slowed it down to 30%. I don't know why, my brain just like wanted the number 30, but do you see how it jumped? There was the ever so slight shift with the paint tool side program when the monitor itself did not move. Let me back this up again. Do you see that? It's so minor, but the monitor didn't move. So why is your drawing program shifting downwards? Did they like fake a monitor to overlay on top of a OBS recording of their speed paint? Look at that. Why is it doing that jump? It's literally for a split second, like right here. So here we are again seeing a lot of jumping. I lowered the contrast on the video so you can see the monitor edge better. I could put it back to like where it used to be, which is like up here. Like, look at that jump again. Their paint tool side is once again glitching up and down. And one thing I really want you to take note of is look at the thickness of the monitor edge, which is again, really thin. Right? Can you see it shrinking? And then you might be like, oh, maybe it got too dark so you can't see the monitor anymore. Maybe. That is possible, but take a look right before it gets too dark to see the top of the monitor. It's shrunk half the size of what it used to be in the beginning of the video. Let's go from here back to here. Okay, that's like regular. This is just odd, where you can literally see the paint tool side glitch down and back up without the monitor moving. Dude, hold on. What is happening down here? Why is there white coming out from the bottom of your monitor screen? And you can see the taskbars. I'm not adjusting the colors. I've reset the colors to whatever was uploaded. Why can you see the taskbars stuff? Note here, right? This, whatever this blue icon is, there's no white bar to indicate that it's open. So you don't see anything down here, but there's like a little white fuzz sticking out from beneath the bottom of the monitor here. Again, I'm just curious, okay? If you could answer me, what monitor do you use? I've seen many a monitors. I've like never seen a monitor with a border this translucent, this thin, and that can somehow reflect the white on the bottom here. And see, at the very beginning, it's not that visible. And then look, as it gets darker, if you zoom in, you can literally see the white showing on the bottom of their monitor. I use OBS all the time. I record my YouTube videos in OBS. I've been using it for 8 years. I've never seen OBS create something like this. There's literally no explanation for that. Unless you faked a monitor. Because, okay, this is what also does not make sense, right? Somehow, your monitor border is so thin to where it's just this tiny little black edge, but then it's super thick on this edge. Or you have an absolute brick of a monitor. This is the regular thickness of the monitor border, which means we should see some of your room over here, no? Because this would be taller than the width of this monitor here. I'm just thinking if like the entire thing is bordered like that. But then again, there is no explanation for what looks like the highlights of your taskbar peeking out from the bottom here. Like, look at this. And maybe I'm being too nitpicky, but the final thing that just kind of confuses me a little bit is that you can see the room get significantly darker as the video goes on. Probably because, you know, maybe took a while for them to record this, etc. Maybe this is my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, but like, why does the screen brightness stay the same? Like, it is as bright as the sun is up, as it is really dark in the room. Like the screen brightness doesn't change. And typically, like if you're recording in a super dark room with 0 lights on, like let's say you just did not turn any lights on between A and B, because this is the main light source in your room now, I'm gonna imagine that your monitor is going to reflect light onto the objects around it, right? Like there's gonna be some sort of light reflection onto the edge of the monitor because typically there's some protrusion, right? A lip of the monitor. And we don't see any of that. We just see this weird protrusion from the freaking search bar down here. We don't see any reflection of the light reflecting onto the edge of the monitor. Because again, being super nitpicky, if this is the border of your monitor that is super, super turbo thin, when it gets dark, we should see this like turn brighter, right? It should be like a bluish white light emitted from your PC that's reflecting off of the monitor. Same thing with like up here. This is the border of your monitor, right? This super thin black border. Should we not see like a reflection of the white light? Ah, man, look up here, okay? There's like a split second, and maybe I'm looking too much into it. Like, I feel like I'm going crazy. There's like a split second glitch where like, again, the canvas shifts upwards. You can see the splitting right here, right, of the pixels. Like it's split right here. And the monitor lip does not move. And do you see the distortion in the actual image itself? How come the icons are warping and then suddenly it distorts back? The reason why I'm so suspect is because if you argue, oh, it's like a computer glitch, a phone glitch, whatever, they're recording on a freaking iPhone 5, which is why it looks like this. Like maybe I could believe you. Why is only half the icons glitching though? Do you see that? Only half of it's warping. Oh, and some of this. But do you know what I mean? Like only specific parts of the canvas are actually warping. Oh, and the color wheel conveniently. We see another instance of it happening here, where you can see again, part of the image is distorting. Look at the eyes. But again, like these buttons stay still. Well, actually this one is warping too, but like some of these icons are staying still, but the color wheel shifted down, the face distorted inwards a little bit. And this icon here is warping downwards. Again, it's not like the entire PC shifted because the monitor bar is not shifting up here. Or actually, it's distorting downwards a little bit here. You can see that. But these are just such weird distortions. We see it again. You see here how this bar is getting thinner, thicker, thinner, thicker, thinner, thicker. The monitor's not moving though. Thinner, thicker, thinner, thicker. The edge of the monitor is distorting a little bit, but it's not distorting in the way where it looks like the entire camera shook because they hit it or something. This is just odd. You see this here? Even in the beginning, there's speed paint. It's like throughout their speed paint, there's more warping happening. Like the monitor is not moving. This is warping. Part of paint tool size is warping. It's again warping. Here we have more shifting where the monitor is not changing, but this is shifting. Just download their speed paint, slow it down to like 25% and just arrow key click through it. And to wrap this up, as you can see here, there is idea theft happening as well, where they take like the meme format that another artist has made prior and they just recreate it in their own style. And like, okay, look, when things trend, people will recreate it, yada, yada, yada. You literally like ripped it one for one. You didn't even change the pose. You didn't even change the outfit actually. And everything is the same. They literally kept the color of the text the same. Like, I guess they color selected this and used that same shade of like gray, that like warm brown gray to write the text. This is so odd. I want to believe artists, but with the speed paint that scuffed and that chopped with that many inconsistencies in it, where it literally looks like they drew the monitor on. And I think people probably missed it here because the timeline bar of the video is like down here. So it's kind of obscuring the bottom of their monitor in this video. But until I see more proof that they are an artist that hand draws and a better speed paint video, this is not selling it. Because why does it look like you drew a monitor and put your OBS recorded speed paint behind your fake monitor drawing to try to pass it off as a speed paint? I've used OBS for 8+ years now, and I have no explanation for this. There's no reasonable explanation that could like explain away why it looks like this and all the other inconsistencies in the speed paint. Wolf has this final post, which is E621's update on Kuro's investigation. This is noting the new speed paint. They write, the same falsifiable video of Rogue first shared in November, which omitted parts of the system's interface, making it possible to silently trace from an image without capturing in video. So that was the old speed paint we saw from November. The investigation writes, a video capture of their monitor with the system clock out of frame recorded from a static viewpoint. At 21 seconds in, an unusual movement is seen in the camera, along with a sudden change in lighting. Additionally, OBS Studio was visible in the taskbar with a red circle, indicating it was recording its own video. Given the double recording, the sudden change in lighting, and the camera angle at 21, and the failure to include any shot of the artist's hands or drawing implements, the visuals displayed on the monitor were likely to be pre-recorded or edited in post. So, at the end of the day, I am curious about your thoughts. Do you think this is a legitimate artist that is falsely accused? Do you think they faked the speed paint and actually drew a monitor to fake a speed paint so that people would not suspect the fact that they are tracing work? This artist made an explanation post to clear their name after a false accusation. Everything was spun on its head. Let's take a look at this. So this all starts with this post made on Threads by user Eliza Smith 122, writing, "Attention! I recently worked with an author on a custom character illustration created entirely from scratch. The author was happy with the first draft and only asked for a background tweak. The background was never part of the commission. 2. It was a stock image added only to showcase the character and give it more visual context. 3. If the author had asked, I would have removed the background immediately and delivered the character as a transparent PNG or on a plain white canvas." Already, I'm a little bit confused because, like, typically backgrounds are an extra fee, an extra ask on a commission. So if the author asked for a background tweak, these two, like, counteract each other, you know? The background was never part of the commission. Yeah, you know, like if somebody is asking for more than what they've paid for in the commission as the artist, that's your job to tell them, like, oh, hey, by the way, just to let you know, backgrounds are going to be an extra so and so for the commission. I hope you're okay with that. And they can give you an answer. Then you said it was a stock image added only to showcase the character. So then, like, why did you use a stock image slash some image at all? So Eliza continues, unfortunately, there was a misunderstanding. The author alleged that both the character and the background were AI generated, despite the fact that I shared the Adobe Illustrator source file, showed separate layers, and provided progress visual. They still initiated a PayPal refund request. I'm genuinely trying to resolve this fairly and professionally. I'm even willing to share the source and Adobe file with any artist who wants to review and verify that the character was not created using AI. I would really appreciate hearing from authors. How would you expect this to be handled? An artist, how would you protect yourself in a situation like this? This feels like a misunderstanding around the use of a temporary stock background, and I'm open to learning how to handle this better in the future. Thanks in advance for your insights. So the file can't be downloaded because it's not available, even though the WeTransfer was posted 2 days ago. I personally am just really confused because, again, like, what is this issue with the background in the first place that started this? Because if the author didn't purchase a background, what was the point of the background? They didn't purchase one. So you should just tell them, if you want a background, that's going to be this much extra. That's it. But then you added a stock image that is allegedly AI slash, but you say it's not AI. Then we have the author coming out to make a statement. And their Threads handle is BiblioBishop. And Bishop writes, I am the author. I did like the initial image they provided. I did ask for a background change because they use AI in the product when they claim to be an anti-AI artist. I was able to pull the JPEG out of the metadata, and none of the work in progresses make sense according to multiple artists. I started a refund process after I was lied to about AI usage. You guys tell me. Am I crazy? Should I apologize and remove the dispute? Which I really wish we could have access to this Adobe Illustrator file that they're claiming would clear their name. So here we have a work in progress, which I've never seen anybody draw like this before, but maybe it's a stylistic aspect. Then we have this, the body plus the shading, and then the body and the shading separated, and then them combined. So I have used Illustrator for minor things like text design, but not for illustration to a heavy degree. This is just an interesting way to draw because it's making more work for yourself than you need to, right? Because the character is modular. They drew it basically as if they're drawing a VTuber model or something to animate with like drawing the layers behind stuff that would obstruct it, which is not a particularly common way that you would see somebody draw art that does not require that, as in art pieces that will not be animated, because again, it's extra work. But let's take a look at the speed paint. What in the speed paint is happening here? Because this most definitely is tracing something. Now, what is it tracing? I don't know. But this is not the speed paint that you would see from a legitimate artist. Straight up, okay? Again, I have to add my disclaimers, okay? Everybody draws differently. You basically will never see an artist draw like only a third of the body in full detail, mind you. Full detail, hair curls, shading added. We go to draw the chest, the half of the face, and then one eyebrow is fully rendered in and only half of the hair. Then we get the other half of the hair. And again, take a look here. They drew in an uneven amount of buttons. Then we draw in the rest of the buttons. This literally looks like they're being an eraser artist. It looks like they took a finished piece and then erased parts of it and then reversed that erasing to try to fabricate a speed paint. Because again, watch this. The ordering of everything is just so odd. And any artist with eyeballs can take a look at this and tell you that this is a fake speed paint. And people in the comments are 50-50. Somebody says, as an artist myself, I reviewed the source file she claimed was not AI generated. After personally going through the file, I can confidently say the artist is 100% in the right. There is nothing in the file that indicates any AI generation or AI usage. Every single layer is clearly hand-drawn by the artist. Another person says, straight talk here. The artist provided you with their workflow, Illustrator file for your personal review, and your solution is to post it on social media and ask everyone else their opinion? You claim you were lied to, but from this vantage, it looks like you're trying to weasel your way out of a contract by using the AI card. I'd say that you ought to be ashamed, but on the back of this exchange here, I doubt it's possible. Other people are saying the speed paint is 100% them tracing over an AI image. Real artists change, resize, and tweak their work as art progresses. A digital drawing with no changes along the way is absolutely indicative of them tracing over another image. And if it were their image, they wouldn't have hidden it from your view. Another person says, not once in my 39 years have I ever started a drawing with the line of the inside seam of a sleeve. That is a trace job. I just thought that comment was funny. It cracked me up here. So Eliza follows up writing, so whatever the hell happened here, I will not make any public statements or reply to anyone from now on. I will deal with this issue with PayPal and make peace with whatever happens. Also, anyone who's here to question my other projects or art or anything, then you won't be entertained at all. Stay the hell out. I'm not obligated to answer you. I did my work with honesty and I'm happy with it. Just try to get an opinion from others by making those posts, but people are straight up ignoring the facts and they're pointing fingers. That's all. If you have any problems, simply block or mute or let me know and I will block you. But I mean, I think it's just interesting because we can take a look at like their other art pieces to truly see like what is going on here. Here's some pieces they've drawn and they've used I guess stock image for the background. It's just a little bit interesting looking. Is it AI? Is it legitimate? I just think it's interesting there's a mortar and pestle, but also there's like an avocado seed in the middle of it. I could be looking too much into like little details and whatever this thing is supposed to be. And in the comments, Eliza had added more expanded layers panel. So you can see the layers that they have for the piece. I just think at the end of the day, yes, we do have the layers and I guess a background that we've never seen because I can't download the file. The file isn't available anymore. Where this speed paint is just so odd. And Adobe Illustrator is not a program that innately can record speed paints, so they must have recorded a speed paint that looked like this on their own volition. Also, again, the final thing is it's just interesting to note because this artist, again, has no prior examples of work before September 2025. And that's always a little bit of like a red flag as well if it's a brand new account on top of the fact that the art process looks suspicious. Because if you have examples of your work dating to before Gen AI was popular, then that could maybe be something to clear your name and offer indications you're legit. But because that's also not available and the speed paint looks so off, it feels a bit odd. And the final thing is we do have this like error in the hand as well. Maybe it was just like a human mistake that the artist made, but they cut out like part of the thumb shading. But I don't know, right? Maybe this is something due to the character's lore in the book. So at the end of the day, what are your thoughts? I'm curious about your thoughts on the situation. I definitely think that with what we have of the speed paint to take a look at, that is an odd speed paint. That speed paint is really odd. And the fact that they've like removed the file that they've uploaded of the Illustrator file, so we can't even revisit their work anymore to clear their name like they've said. It's not really doing a good job. The thing is, at the end of the day, people are like, you can separate the layers so it's not AI generated. The main accusation is that there is some sort of AI usage involved in the production of the piece, as in tracing. You can trace something and still end up with a bunch of hand-drawn layers because you traced over something. So there's that. So what are your thoughts? Do you think it's AI generated? Do you think it's traced? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below with respect. And with that, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Don't forget to check me out on Etsy. I have digital art there for streamers and creators. I also have a coffee with free resources like a free sponsorship guide, and I stream on Twitch 3 days a week, and I've changed one of the days. So now it's Monday, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST. Hope to catch y'all there or in another video. Peace.